Maybe you can start, Wojciech.
Yeah, it's 3 past on my clock. So yes, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome. Saying evening, afternoon, and because I see we have participants here from 69 countries, so a lot of time zones as well. So yes, my name is Wojciech. I'm the Partnerships and Business Development Director at the OceanQuest Foundation. I'm a science diplomat with a focus on marine economics and marine policy and marine finance. And today we gather here not just to reflect where we've been, but to chart where we're going. This session is an opportunity to look back at our recent deep ocean expedition, the Around Africa expedition, a multi-leg, multinational mission led by OceanX, OceanQuest, in partnership with the South African NRF-SAEON, IMar, Cabo Verde, and the Partnership for for Observation of Global Ocean, which was endorsed as a contribution to the UN Decade of Ocean Science. So here today, we will summarize the findings. We will capture the insights and share the moments that don't always fit neatly into the reports. So I'm talking about the energy, the excitement, the surprises, and the impressions. So whenever you're joining from your coastal lab, for your inland office, or somewhere mid between tides and time zones, thank you for surfacing for this deep dive number 1. So this meeting is isn't just about debriefing. It's just about looking back, looking forward, but also about building. So we want this deep dive series to be a space where all of you explorers, scientists, engineers, storytellers, and enthusiasts can find each other and start conversations and forge the kind of connections that power the next expeditions, because there will be next expeditions and other joint endeavors that we're envisaging. So yeah, so now settle in. I will run this show with a series of about 10-minute presentations. Then we'll have 2-3 minutes for immediate questions to the presenters. And then we'll have a Q&A session at the end. I was sent here some technical details here. So yeah, please, the audio and video, your microphone and camera will be automatically disabled during this session. So when you ask questions to the presenters, do ask them here on the bottom. It says the Q&A box. So not in the chat, so in the Q&A box. Include your name, affiliation if possible, and then questions selected by the moderator will be addressed during the Q&A segment after the presentations. You may also upvote other presenters' questions by clicking thumbs up icon. I'm not sure personally how that works, but let's see. We're all learning here. Yeah, and just to say, use the chat respectively, and it may be enabled for general comments and links from organizers. So avoid, please, spamming or posting unrelated content. The seminar is recorded and it's also live streamed, as you can see on top of the screen. In terms of technical support, if you experience any issues, try leaving and rejoining the webinar. And for help, write via chat if enabled, or email organizers directly, jose.moutinho@caust.edu.sa. So yes, today it's the Seamount deep dive number 1. And for today, I'll give you the following presenters. We'll start with Roger Meyer from OceanX. Roger will bring us some behind the scenes of expedition planning and logistics. Then Mattie Rodrigue, OceanX, will shed some light on the science and technology driving discovery. Then Lara Atkinson, South African National Research Foundation, SAEON, who has led the science leg in South Africa and will present us the depths of the Walters Shoal and Africana Seamounts. Then we'll switch to Yara Rodrigues, Cabo Verde IMar, will share the experience from Cabo Verde and the Nola Seamount. Next, there will be time for geology and some mapping optics. So my colleague Nico Augustin from OceanQuest will take you on that journey. Then Kailani Acosta, OceanX, will share with us her best practices in ECOP training and capacity sharing. Then we'll experience what learning, growing, and networking for an ECOP at sea entails. That will be brought in by Sinotando Shibe, South Africa's Sun Parks. Then Jose OceanQuest will give you some insights of the public student visits that we had in the VIP outreach in the docks. And then we'll finish off with OceanX Media. Eben Hall will be sharing some insights on science, logistics, trainings, and outreach, and most of our stories from the expedition. So before that, we'll have a few welcome remarks from both OceanX and OceanQuest CEOs. So Martin, if you want to go first, I'll give you the floor.
Yeah. Well, colleagues, thank you very much, Wojciech, Jose, and the whole team from OceanQuest and OceanX for preparing this very first Seamount deep dive webinar that we're launching. We're looking forward to many more of them to share with all of you around the world the excitements about Seamount, their discovery, exploration, importance. And it's just such a great pleasure to be here with all of you at the end of the Around Africa expedition that was so ably executed by our friends and colleagues from OceanX on the wonderful OceanXplorer. And I myself had the opportunity to participate in one of those legs. So without further ado, very excited here. A big thank you to everybody involved, to all the speakers, and actually all the participants and partners of the Around Africa expedition. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
I'll just second all that and be very quickly. It's Vincent. Hello. First, I just want to congratulate OceanQuest on an amazing expedition, on developing and designing it. Jose and the rest of the team, Wojciech and everyone, Nico, thank you all. It was an amazing collaboration. It was wonderful. Everybody at OceanX was very excited to have it. It's an amazing topic. These little reserves in the middle of the ocean, and so we're looking forward to a long future studying these great little places on the earth. So thank you all for joining today.
Thank you, Vincent. Yes, excellent. So without further ado, the first one to go, first presentations, the head of missions, OceanX, Roger. Roger Meyer steers OceanX global planning and choreographs a wide network of scientists, educators, filmmakers, technologies, governments, and coastal communities, legal and finance, balancing multi-year vessel roadmaps as well. So Roger, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Wojciech, and thank you, Martin and Vincent, for the opening remarks. It is my distinct pleasure and honor to go first and to tee up this super ambitious and incredible United Nations Decade of Ocean expedition, the Around Africa expedition. I'm also very pleased to go first because everyone that follows will be an extremely tough act to follow. So without further ado, the Around Africa expedition was an expedition with OceanQuest and OceanX with a number of partners involved. It is certainly one of our OceanX's most ambitious expeditions ever. The mission featured 5 distinct phases combining science, education, and transits with stops in 5 countries with 116 participants from around 37 countries over the span of about 70 days. And miraculously, all of this came together really in a matter of months. So while it had been an idea and a discussion between OceanQuest and OceanX and sort of the vision of Ray and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to sort of embark on something truly ambitious, we were able to put it together in very short order. So the mission itself, the goals were really to maximize science and education, to provide opportunity and capacity building, to contribute to global data in really underrepresented areas, and to build and expand our partnerships and relationships in this country and on this continent. The expedition, as I mentioned, had these 5 sort of phases, beginning in Comoros with a scientific transit down through Walters Shoal and the Africana Seamount, concluding in Cape Town. We then ran an education program from Cape Town to Walvis Bay with our Young Explorer program, and then conducted a Walvis Bay to Mindelo transit expedition with POGO, focused on early careers and sort of capacity building. Then an internal mission in Mindelo, focused on sort of the Nola Seamounts, and concluding with an additional early careers expedition from Mindelo to Las Palmas. And I should mention, I would be remiss to not bring it up, in each one of these stops, we also conducted numerous educational tours, hosting a number, hundreds of students and educators and local entities, officials, etc., and welcoming them on board, showing them what we'd accomplished and some of what we planned to do going forward. So what's it take to plan an expedition like this? It takes quite a lot. So I really actually enjoyed kind of making this slide with all the different puzzle pieces, because as I was going through it, I just kept adding more and more. And I'm sure if we picked any number of them, we could have an interesting story and dialogue specific to this expedition, where maybe there was an issue or a challenge or something to overcome. But really, the number one thing, or the top 2 things you should have, are an excellent team and time, ample time. And I would say we certainly had the excellent team, and we were able to accommodate everything with the time that we had. In essence, my role in this expedition, working hand in hand with Jose and Wojciech and Martin, our internal team, and many others, was to sort of orchestrate the vision and execute the mission and turn it into a cogent plan. So going back to sort of that route map, we went through 3 or 4 iterations very quickly. We collaborated on exactly what our goals and objectives were and how to maximize those, working hand in hand with local scientists for the scientific objectives, like Lara, like Yara, to figure out what the best deployment strategies would be, what assets we could use, what permits might be required, what visas are really sort of essential, and building our network through and through. And Jose also playing a key role as well, deploying ahead of missions, checking the different facilities, meeting the relevant agents, making those critical on-the-ground connections, which have served us so well. All in all, from September through to the end of this in April, we were meeting regularly, almost weekly, as an OceanX and OceanQuest bunch, and dividing up different work streams to sort of create the intersections of information, outreach, and action tracking that were needed for all of the different sort of swim lanes, which include, but are not limited to, sort of education, science, media, press, PR, port stops, events, all of the things that go into planning an expedition like this. Of course, I would be remiss not to also say that it takes a fantastic asset and team, and we were blessed to have possibly the world's best with OceanXplorer and our team on board. And I will not get into the details on this, because Mattie will be walking us through all of the technical and on-ship technologies. But it would not be possible without our ship and our crew, and we were lucky to have that as kind of our backbone or starting point in expedition planning. So what are some of the risks when planning an expedition such as this? There are some obvious ones in terms of permits, timelines, and sort of navigating governmental relationships. But really the big one, and this slide is intentionally blank, is the unknown. And so as good a plan as you can develop, your plans need to be able to adapt and to change. And that was true here, as it is true consistent with all of our sort of scientific research and objectives, be it a missed flight, a lost bag, a shipment being held up in customs, bad weather. Plans need to be able to adjust and react, or even a discovery in mission with things going exceptionally well, wanting to spend more time studying a feature. And so we are able to navigate that as a team through sort of consistent communication, strategic planning, where we actually allocated some buffer in between and planned conservatively to adapt to some of those situations, and really just making sure that the overall architecture could support these little flexes or changes. And I will say, another one of our great risks is our own ambitions. And so through and through, we had to sort of keep in contact with one another. Can we fit another event on OceanXplorer? Can we do another tour? And trying to adapt. So I know Yara will also talk about one of these such things, most likely in terms of our Cabo Verde mission, where we actually had to adjust the mission duration to accommodate some last minute plans. And still were able to maximize and really get an excellent result. And so I'm pleased to turn it over next to Mattie and the rest of the panelists here, who will really highlight and underscore all the really wonderful findings and experiences of being on board, experiencing these missions, and really putting this plan and these ambitious goals into action. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Roger. We do have one question to you from Agnes. I can see in the question and answer box. Can you see that question, Roger?
I am opening it now. Currently running a W. So is it possible to share this data? Yes, we are definitely looking at and processing the data associated with these missions and contributing to public repositories, and we'll be doing so shortly. We're actually in the process of just kind of outreach and finalizing these kinds of submissions. And I'm sure Mattie and others can jump in if there's anything they want to add. Thank you for the question.
Yes, thank you. That was a question from Kenya Marine and Fisheries Research Institute. Any other questions? I don't see any in the... And it says Jose would like to answer this question. Is that true, Jose?
Oh, no, sorry. I just said that it was answered live.
Got it. Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah. Live in the webinar chat, there's plan. I'm looking, and the energy is amazing. There's comments from all over the world, which is awesome to see. Any other questions for Roger? If not, then we will have a Q&A session at the end, so we can leave it there. Thanks again, Roger. So we'll, as you said, Roger, we'll switch to Mattie. For those technologies in ocean discovery. So Mattie Rodrigues is a science program director in OceanX. She's an ocean science professional with extensive experience with ocean exploration initiatives, marine science research, program development and facilitation, being responsible for all scientific expedition coordination and planning, scientific publications and technology development. Mattie leads OceanX scientific partnerships and spearheads this scientific curriculum for OceanX Young Explorers programs and other outreach initiatives. So Mattie, take it away, please.
Great, thank you, Wojciech. And hello, everybody. I hope everybody can see my screen here. So I am Mattie Rodrigue. I'm the Science Program Director for OceanX, and like everyone else on the screen and many in the chat that participated in the Around Africa expedition, it is my absolute honor to be here to talk to everybody kind of about the expedition, the overarching expedition structure, and then some of the incredible work that we achieved together. And before we talk a little bit about the expedition and the collaboration with all of the different host countries and with OceanQuest, we have to talk a little bit about OceanX. That's the program that I represent. And the reason why we do that is because we're talking about an incredible operational capability with the vessel, the OceanXplorer, and the way that the expedition was structured, which is very similar to the way that OceanX as a program is structured, as an organization is structured. My transitions are a little slow here. Sorry. So as many of you are aware, OceanX has one sort of very specific but infinite in its complexity mission and vision to explore the world's ocean and bring science, discovery, and general excitement and passion about the ocean back to the world through captivating media education. And this is so that we can enable the next generation and the current inhabitants of this planet to be more inspired to care and act in support of the ocean for our future. Within OceanX, we have a few core pillars and key tenets. So we pulled together technology, science, media, and education, all to uncover the unexplored depths of the ocean. Most of us know that we have no idea what's going on down there. Most of the ocean is unexplored. And so we combine OceanXplorer, so the ship, the operational arm of our organization, with the science, the media, education, and partnerships. So really what everybody came to hear about, I think, is the ship itself and how the ship was utilized in support of all of the incredible science and education objectives for this expedition. So OceanXplorer is probably the most advanced research and media platform that is operational today. It empowers scientists, storytellers, filmmakers, students to really have a one-of-a-kind experience on board. And the vessel itself actually has a pretty interesting journey. And it's kind of funny, actually, because I can see that we have over 200 participants on board here. And I think more than half, I think, have already been on the vessel. So you guys could give this presentation as opposed to me. But the OceanXplorer actually started as an offshore oil and gas platform tender. And just about 8 years ago, Vincent and a few others at our organization found this offshore oil and gas platform tender and decided to convert it into a force for good for the planet. And so through a really extensive refit process where they surveyed and polled a huge swath of the scientific community about what their dream vessel could be. They ideated and created sort of this dream platform that not just did science and did cutting edge science and was able to facilitate research, but also was able to combine that with storytelling, because the last thing that Vincent and the founders at OceanX wanted, and what we wanted at OceanX, is for science to just stop at the sort of publication phase. It's really important to get that work into the publication phase, obviously, but if it goes into a journal and only a small proportion of the world can actually see that, then for us, that's not us doing our job. That's not us bringing it back to the world. And so everything on the ship was designed hand in hand for media and storytelling capabilities as well. And that was really so that the scientists also could tell the story of their own science, and so that people watching the films or the documentaries or the digital shorts that we make could actually see scientists in action and care about not just the science that was being done in the ocean and the ocean space itself, but also the people that dedicate their lives and are so passionate about this work and about understanding the lifeblood of our planet. So the technology on board the vessel is sort of our standard suite of technology that's available, but all of this technology was also utilized for the Around Africa expedition, which I'll talk about in a minute. So on board OceanXplorer, we have two 1,000-meter manned submersibles. And I always start with this because this is really the cornerstone of our program. We've operated subs for well over a decade in the gold standard of safe operations. And I'll say this because I like to brag about it all the time, and everybody on the call pretty much knows me and knows that I like to say it, but we are the best in the world at operating submersibles in the most safe manner possible. And the submersibles are really important to us because, again, it's not just remotely exploring and understanding the ocean. It's actually trying to bring humans into the environment, into the world that they're studying, and give them a totally different picture, a totally different context of what that environment is. So while we also implement lots of other technologies, underwater robots, surface robots, acoustic mapping, which I'll talk about in a minute, it's really, really, really critical for us to make sure that people have the experience in the environment and really can understand what it is that they're fighting for, what it is that they're working on. So with the submersibles, the science submersible and a media submersible, Neptune and Nadir, and some of you I can see in the chat have participated in dives in those vehicles. We also have a 6,000-meter remotely operated vehicle, Chimera, and that ROV is a balance of science and media both. So lots of instrumentation, lots of sampling capability, and capable of that 6,000-meter depth range. We also have surface vehicles. So we have an autonomous vehicle we didn't get to use during the Around Africa expedition, which is really designed for understanding and mapping coastal habitats, which really complements well our acoustic mapping capabilities for the deep water systems. So on the vessel itself, we can map with 2 multi-beams, so we can get a 3D image of the seafloor. We can map with water column sonar, so EK80, a bioacoustic sonar, so that gives us all of the life, maps us acoustically all of the life that's in the water column, so we can see all of the different scattering layers and the prey fields and the fish moving up and down. And then we also can look underneath the seafloor, so we have a sub-bottom profiling system that gives us layers down to about 30 meters underneath the seafloor, so we can see all of the different geomorphology, which Nico will talk about later in the call. And then we also have 2 ADCPs, which give us the physical oceanographic parameters. So the water masses moving in and around, cycling, swirling, temperature, nutrients, and basically creating the conditions under which we observe life. So all of these things can be used in combination, and we did use those systems everywhere we went, which I'll show you some pretty mind-blowing stats here in a minute. All of this is great for exploration. And then what about taking exploration all the way to discovery? So for that, we have our sequencing laboratories on board. So with our environmental DNA and molecular facilities, we're able to go from exploration all the way to discovery within the context of a single expedition. So collecting the samples with the subs, with the ROV, with our scuba diving facilities, with our CTD profiling systems, but then also being able to extract, purify, quantify, and sequence the DNA right there on board, not just for scientific purposes and for research purposes, so we don't have to transport samples and back and forth into a lab and wait, years and years in order to get everything sequenced, but also to empower training and capacity building and knowledge exchange on board. So this was really critical for us to be working with POGO and the Ocean Biomolecular Observing Network, OBON, to get trainers to train the next generation of trainers around molecular techniques. So we had eDNA workshops on board, and it was foundational for our curriculum as well as our actual expeditions. Dive center, helicopter, other laboratories on board. You'll see lots of bits and pieces of these as you hear from everybody about their experiences on board for the expedition itself. And Kailani will talk a little bit more about the education programming. So this was a huge component of the Around Africa expedition and something that OceanX does quite well. So we combine digital experiences, immersive experiences, on-ship experiences, and even do exhibits and outreach in certain areas. We also are really lucky to be able to bring lots and lots of students on board who don't necessarily get to sail with us, but still can have a really immersive and really hands-on tour of the vessel, talking to experts along the way, so they can really get a sense of how it feels to be on board and learn a little bit about what the ship was doing in their waters. So the Around Africa expedition, you've already heard from Roger how ambitious of an expedition this was, but we were really excited because actually, while we had worked a little bit in the Seychelles prior to this expedition, the OceanXplorer had never been to Africa as a continent. So we had never done a full dedicated expedition season in Africa. And so we didn't know what we didn't know. And so we're very, very grateful to have OceanQuest connect us with local partners along the way, especially with Jose and his vast network. As everyone knows, Jose is the most connected person probably on the planet. But having Jose connect us to local experts, local researchers, so that the research that was represented as part of this expedition was representative of regional needs. So African scientists identifying gaps in their own knowledge base and their knowledge systems, and ensuring that the type of science that we were conducting on this expedition was directly and immediately useful for that region and for that science. So Roger talked a little bit about the mission objectives, but here in more detail, we're looking at this as not just site-specific scientific expeditions. So this was a new challenge for us as well. So a lot of us on the science side have worked extensively with networks like CEPA 2030 or like POGO, looking at ways to contribute data, that we collect while we're underway. But here we had an opportunity to be really, really tactful and really, really intentional about the routes that we're designing based on regional input. So we look at where the gaps are with the GMRT sort of mapping grids. We look at where the gaps are in the Seabed 2030 publicly available data. We look at where gaps are for ocean observing, look at where there's been very minimal CTD casts or very minimal profiling or any sort of remote sensing done. And through this, are able to combine all of the things that OceanXplorer can do, from measuring aerosols to mapping to water sampling to measuring basic parameters around physical oceanographic conditions, pretty much everything that the ship can do, and collect data 24/7 along the route. And I'll show you in a minute very, very busy graph that's a table actually that shows you kind of where all of the data sets are going that we acquired. So the number one goal here for us on the science side is to make sure that we're maximizing the scientific data acquisition in international waters and within countries' EEZs, if that country allowed, and then contributing those data sets to public repositories. And that is really the mission, right? To bring it back to the world, to make sure that the public has access to these data sets. Then again, I talk a lot about making sure that we're being intentional about who we're partnering with. So it's not just us coming in and saying, we think you should do this. It's the scientists that are representing their areas. They know best the data limitations. They know best what capacity they want. They know best what expertise they can offer. And so making sure that they are the people that are driving the expeditions forward. And so again, leveraging access to some of these regions that maybe you can only get when a ship comes through that does global class or global scale, basin scale research. Maybe you don't have a global seagoing oceanographic research vessel visiting the neighborhood every 2 years. And so making sure we're maximizing the opportunity here. So we're combining biomolecular observing and microbiological sciences with eDNA sampling, with aerosols, with a group from NASA coming on to ground truth the PACE satellite, with all kinds of different things, and then ground truthing all of that within the local communities that we're working with. Another huge part of this was empowering early career researchers, or ECOPs. So Kailani will talk a lot about this, but partnering with POGO, partnering with Oman, ensuring that we had every transit leg and every site-specific scientific leg foundationally involving and including ECOPs as part of the research planning process. And then, of course, this is OceanX's first UN Decade endorsed expedition. And so ensuring that we're forging partnerships that are long-term, that are long-lasting, and making sure that we're all rowing together towards the same sustainable goals. So this is the overall route map. And we estimate that we mapped about 113,000 new square kilometers along this route. So you can see that the pink line is the transit route. So I'm showing you the full kind of route. The vessel left from Singapore, made a stop in the Maldives. And then actually our first site-specific expedition was in the Seychelles, working in partnership with the Seychelles government and the Seychelles Island Foundation. And we returned to Aldabra and mapped the interior of the Aldabra Atoll, the lagoon, and finished an underwater visual census along the outside of the Aldabra Atoll. So it was very, very cool, creating a biodiversity catalog. And then kicking off the rest of the Around Africa expedition with our collaborators, starting in Comoros. So you can see along this route, we have a lot of water sampling locations. So the dots are where you see a CTD cast was conducted. And the maximum depth of the CTD cast was about 5,000 meters, and the minimum depth was about 200 meters. And the 200-meter casts were not because we're in too shallow water. It's usually just because, as Roger says, stuff comes up, weather, the unknown. And so you have to adjust your timing, and CTD cast can take some time. And so just making sure that we're stopping the vessel and adjusting every single day for the amount of time that we have left along the transit route to get to the site-specific expeditions. The green boxes that you see are the site-specific expeditions, so the exploration areas. So you see the Seamount areas. First, the area north of Madagascar, so Aldabra Atoll, then the Walters Shoal Seamount area. You see there's also what I don't think you can see, or at least I can't because of my Zoom bar. There's a little area south of South Africa, the Africana Seamount area. And then you can see the area up in Cabo Verde that we explored, the Nola Seamount complex. And again, another very, very busy map. we have some metrics for everybody. This is hot off the press. Obviously, this is a lot of data and a lot of things for us to sort of collate. But this map is really important, probably the most important, because it really shows, one, the cruise track, but then also it highlighted in yellow the countries that were involved in the expedition. And so while the priority was focusing on the African continent and making sure that all of the scientists on board are representative of countries in Africa, it was also a global multidisciplinary expedition. So we had partners from all over the world, facilitated by OceanQuest, coming on board through various, representing their various networks and really contributing to a lot of the knowledge exchange and capacity building on board. So I won't go through all of the stats, but one thing I did want to highlight, so the total new mapping coverage that we estimate. So we have the mapping coverage, and then the new mapping coverage, it's not in any database yet, but will be very soon, over 95,000 square kilometers. That is huge. Exploring 5 seamounts, sampling over 700 times, and then ROV and subdives, 39, external scientists, 69, young explorers and early career explorers, 56, and then again, 33 affiliated countries. I know I'm going over time. I'm sorry, I'm almost done. And then again, some more statistics, and I'm happy to send this around or which I can send it around afterwards. But we were doing a lot of work on the underweight transits, and this is just showing you a little bit of that. So you can see the seawater samples, the underway seawater flow-through system samples, the CTD casts. You see the atmospheric samples, the aerosol samples. You can see the subdives in each of the site-specific research areas, the helicopter and acoustic survey areas where we're looking for marine mammals and trying to contextualize not just the what is there, but the why it's there, the biological and geological sampling stations, and then also our partnerships with external organizations, NASA, NOAA, the meteorological offices, both in the US and the UK for Argo and biogeochemical Argo deployments. So all of these things, all of this data, all of this work designed again to bring it back to the world, to be directly contributable to public repositories, while also empowering researchers and students to have access to not just technology that they won't ever see again, but foundational skill sets and foundational tech that they can then take back into their regions of work. And then just for the questions around the data contribution. So here's where we are contributing and where we have partnerships to contribute lots and lots of data. So of course, everything going to NCEI for the public databases that are curated there, but then also into GMRT, Seabed 2030, WIO Bathy Project, GEBCO, and these are all active partnerships. We're on comms with the representatives for their different regions to get these data contributed. I will give a quick shout out here that we already contributed about 30,000 square kilometers of data, of mapping data, and that is largely because of the processing power as part of the workshop, the ECOP workshop from a woman who was on board during the Comoros to Cape Town. Shout out to Amina. I think you're on board somewhere, one of the ECOPs. And she actually helped process all of this data, which made it possible for us to already contribute the data to Seabed 2030 and to GMRT. And it'll be published in the next round of GMRT. The Ocean Biodiversity Information System will be getting a lot of the environmental DNA work. eDNA will be looking at bacteria, we'll be looking at fish, we'll be looking at fungi, we'll be looking at viruses, pretty much everything. And same with the aerosols. And I'm happy to send this around or answer questions about it later, because I know I'm way over time now. And of course, everything that we have conducted is not just OceanX floating around on the super cool ship alone. It's with all of our partners. And I couldn't list everybody here, but here are a huge smattering of really, really important and really incredible partners that lent us their expertise as well. We know how to operate the ship. We know how to do the science, but we don't know how to contextualize the science, how to make it meaningful, and how to understand what we're looking at without these local experts and local expertise. And I have a little teaser. I'm not sure if it will play, but I have a little teaser because Eben is going to be showcasing a ton of highlights. But I just wanted to show you a little bit. I talk a lot and I talk really fast. And I hope that the video helps contextualize some of the things that I shared with you all. Maybe not. Okay, so with that, I just wanted to say thank you so much to everybody. Thank you to the OceanQuest team for convening. Thank you to everyone that helped and participated and sailed with us. I was on the entire expedition, so I was so fortunate to be able to meet and work with you all. And also, I just heard that the ship is actually tuned in and is also watching the webinar. So thank you very much to the ship team on board. And yeah, we'll take it from there. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Mattie. This is awesome, and the video brings back memories for sure. And look at all the reactions to the video. We do have quite numerous questions, but I will just pass the first three to you, and then we'll figure out how to reply to the other ones. You can see the questions in the Q&A box, but I'm also receiving questions through my secret other channels here. And so the first question is from Kodayo Afian. He's the chair of the Goose Africa and IOC Africa. If you can summarize in 1 or 2 sentences, what was the main objective of the cruise?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Being succinct. Thank you for calling me out on that. So I would say in 1 or 2 sentences, there were twofold objectives. So the first was to conduct a basin scale expedition around Africa to maximize data acquisition for contribution to the UN Decade of Ocean Science, including highlighting underexplored areas like seamounts. And the second was to catalyze capacity building and knowledge exchange within the African continent with early career explorers, early career researchers, and African scientists, as well as young explorers.
Yes, thank you. And then we'll go to the one from Zachary Soho. He's the director of the Institute of Oceanology in Benin. How to join such an expedition, and is it possible for students to come on board, and which countries were eligible?
Great question. Thank you. So because this was a collaboration with OceanQuest, the sort of proposal and request for proposal process was done collaboratively. So OceanQuest and Jose could probably answer questions about the RFP process that they underwent and how they identified specific partners. And when we at OceanX, when we conduct expeditions, we usually do what's called a regional RFP. So we announce that we're going to a specific area, and then we have different networking workshops with different sort of convening bodies, regional working groups, regional coordinating bodies. We exchange knowledge around what we do, and then what the researchers are seeing and sort of what they would like to achieve. And then we open an RFP process. And so then we go through a proposal review process with the regional convening body and with our sort of foundational partners within the expedition, and go from there.
Yeah. Thanks. And the last one, for the sake of time, here, Colombia, IMar, the question about environmental DNA, what happened on the ship in that regards?
Yep. So the environmental DNA research questions were pretty foundational to the whole expedition. So while we're on the transit legs, so that the 2 science components, the transit legs, and then the site-specific research components, the site-specific research components being the seamounts. And you'll hear from the team on some of the seamount science that was conducted. But the idea for the transit science was, it started as a bacterial plankton project where we're collecting water and trying to use environmental DNA to understand bacterial plankton communities on a basin by basin scale. And then sort of developed, once we partnered with OBON, into understanding a bit more about what was living there. So starting to look into more eukaryotes and looking at fish, looking at fungi, looking at viruses, looking at other species. And so the sampling that were conducted is one through our underway seawater sampling on the surface, and then also collecting within the profile of the water column with the CTD casts, trying to sample 7 different target depths within the water column. And so those samples are being, they've already been extracted. They were extracted on board, and now they're being sequenced. It's about 500, 600 samples.
Great. Thanks, Mattie. Awesome energy as always. And thank you for those who've posed questions in our Q&A box. We will try to squeeze them at the end of the session. If not, then we'll find another way. For now, we will switch over to Lara Atkinson. Lara is the offshore biology scientist with the South African Environmental Observation Network. She's been with that organization since 2010, and her research focused on developing and implementing monitoring protocols for the offshore benthic environment and assessing the impacts of human activities. Lara is an honorary research associate with the University of Cape Town and Nelson Mandela University, and of course, Lara was the co-lead of the first of the South African science leg of the Around Africa expedition. So lots to share with our wonderful audience. So Lara, please, over to you.
Thank you very much, Wojciech. And thank you, Mattie. Quite a lot of energy there to follow on. But Mattie, the little video clip that you shared with us again, just put that smile back on my face. I've watched it so many times, but seeing it again just reminded me of that incredible experience. And now I'm going to very briefly share with everybody else on the call what we got up to on the first science leg. So that was from Moroni and Comores through to Cape Town, where I was privileged to be the African lead scientist. Let me just check that I can advance. Yep. Right. So there it goes. A 24-day expedition starting out in Moroni at the end of January and sailing around some key target sites that we explored and heading into Cape Town into February. And with me on board as the visiting scientist team were 18 scientists from 10 nations, a pretty good balance of male to female ratio. 14 of those scientists were from 6 African countries. And as Roger pointed out, time was not really on our side in getting this organized and pulling this together. So I have to give a huge shout out to the African Network for Deep Sea Researchers, well established. And through that network, I was able to really reach out and get the right people on board to join us for this expedition around Africa. And 13 of those were early career professionals. And also just to say that even though I'm not an early career professional, this was actually my first expedition into the deep sea. I've done work around South Africa, but not really much deeper than 700 to 1,000 meters at most. So this was truly my first deep sea expedition, certainly with all those incredible tools and technology that OceanXplorer has to offer. So this was our team. Still puts a big smile on my face every time I see these little faces, because this was my incredible team that journeyed with me during those 3 weeks around Africa, or at least on our science leg trip. And yeah, every single one of them were just outstanding. I knew maybe a handful of them before we sailed. And by the end of this expedition, we are a tight-knit community and still keep in touch to this day. So that was really... and firstly, that was my very first heartfelt experience of this expedition, is just this incredible team. So then getting on to the actual research. So we had 4 key research objectives for this. One being the geological survey, which would be the seafloor mapping, as well as looking at the actual rocks and sediment, doing the biodiversity assessment. And that would be focusing in on the benthic invertebrates and as well as monitoring for the fish at transects, different depths, stratified up depending on the seamount, and collecting targeted species. Then we would be doing the environmental DNA. Again, this was quite of a targeted. I know Mattie explained a lot about the broader DNA that was part of the entire expedition, but during this science leg 1, we really were focusing in on some eDNA barcoding, meta-barcoding of sponges and filtered water that we were looking at specifically for the fish and sharks and rays, as well as hoping potentially to pick up any coelacanth genes. And then we were doing a lot of the physical variables and pelagic sampling, the water column sampling for a wide range of variables, including the plankton, the nutrients, and microbes. So those were our 4 key areas of research. And just to show you that during our geological survey, we would be mapping. And that was actually the foundation. so to speak, of the entire expedition is making sure that we collated these excellent seabed maps. Obviously, we would focus on the seamounts once we got there, and then where we were able to, we would collect rocks and sediment. The biodiversity assessment, again, using these incredible tools of the ROV and the submersible. The ROV would be deployed and run very fixed transects, following in with the Challenger 150 protocol of ensuring that we are standardizing our protocol along a fixed transect line and making sure that we're going to be able to process all that footage, while the submersibles were able to supplement any kind of collecting from around about us. So that was really very amazing to be able to have those submersibles also deployed and helping us out with some of the collecting and getting that bigger picture view. Then the sample retrieval and endless late nights on processing those samples when they came up. But that was the greatest joy at the end of a long day. And then environmental DNA, as I mentioned, we were targeting in on the sponges, which filter lots and lots of water in themselves. And then we were also collecting water from just above the seabed to filter that as well, looking specifically for targeted genes of sharks and rays and fish in this area. And then the physical variables and the pelagic sampling using the CTD that Mattie was mentioning, and all the way along the transit, as well as at the seamounts themselves, we would be filtering loads and loads of water. The water filtering just never stopped to pick up for those physical variables, nutrients and microbes. So zooming in a little bit on the geological findings, well, we managed to get an excellent high-resolution map of Walters Shoal Seamount, just south of Madagascar on the Madagascar Ridge over there. And there you can see our very high-resolution, beautiful seabed map in multibeam. The base of Walters Shoal sort of sits on the top of the Madagascar Ridge, and it's actually the highest point coming up nearest to the surface in the entire basin. So Walters Shoal is a small seamount sitting on top of a ridge. The base of the seamount starts at 550, but it comes up as shallow as 12 meters below the surface of the sea. And that is incredibly shallow. And as you will see on this little map over here, we actually were not able to map right across that surface just because it is so shallow. But we went in as close as we possibly could. And one day under calm conditions, we'll get back there and map right across that's the top of Walters Shoal. And then moving on south to a seamount that has never been mapped before, and we've just nicknamed it for now the Mad Ridge Seamount, because we need to go through a very structured process to give this seamount a name, and we're working on that. And this seamount was much, much deeper, with the base sitting at 3,000 meters and coming up to as shallow as 900 meters. And then much closer to my home of South Africa, just outside South Africa's EEZ, we managed to produce an incredibly high resolution, beautiful seabed map of the Africana seamount, which I think Nico is going to give us a little bit more information about. But this is also a very interesting feature, never before been mapped at this reservoir, never before been mapped at all. And I'm rising from 4,000 meters base up to 1,500 meters. All of these seamounts are volcanic in origin, and I am sure that Nico is going to give us more information about it. But just to say that during the science leg 1, we contributed just over 33,000 square kilometers of seabed mapping into that total number for the entire expedition. So having a look then at the Walters Shoal Seamount, and here we really focused our time and efforts on Walters Shoal, with a lot less time being allocated for the other two seamounts. So at Walters Shoal, we spent a good 5 days, and in these 5 days, we completed 4 ROV dives, where we would do 3 transects per dive, stratified by the depth, and keeping the depth of each transect consistent around the seamount to try and get a full picture on each aspect of the seamount. And we were also able to do 2 full submersible dives, which complemented the perspective of what it was looking like, as well as the sample collection. So during this time at Walters Shoal, we collected 196 specimens, and we were targeting sponges, soft corals, and hard corals, although along with those animals, we often get a lot of associated animals, little squat lobsters specifically hiding in amongst it, some crabs, and many other things that made up that large number of samples that were collected. We also managed to collect 10 rocks, which were confirmed all to be carbonate. And where possible, we managed to get a few little sediment scoops. Walters Shoal is actually a very hard, solid carbonate seamount, and it is very difficult. We were not able to do any cores anywhere on any of our dives, but we got a few little scoops here and there to try and have a look at in fauna and grain size. And then we also, mostly from the submersibles, managed to detect or count so far 9 families of fish observed, and we're still working on that further. So that was our efforts at Walters Shoal. Moving south then onto the Mad Ridge Seamount. Here we were only able to do 1 ROV dive just because of our time constraints, and this seamount is very deep. So we did a transect, not sticking with the Challenger 150, but really just trying to get a first glimpse, a first see on the seabed. This is the first time this seamount has ever been mapped. So we were able to have a look from 2,000 to 1,800 meters transect using that ROV. And we were doing collections at the same time, which the ROV pilots will always tell you you can triple your amount of time. And we collected 13 specimens, again targeting in on those sponges and corals. And then we collected a basalt rock from the seamount, which was great excitement on our expedition, on our leg. And here at the base of the seamount, it was far more sediment, fine-grained sediment, real sand. So we were able to collect 3 sediment cores at the base and several sediment scoops along the way while we were doing our transect. And then we reached Africana Seamount, which is what I was looking forward to the most. But unfortunately, at Africana Seamount, we also encountered the Agulhas current and her eddies. And the Agulhas current is world famous. It is one of the strongest currents in the world. And those eddies that spin off from her are part of what drives this unique system around the southern tip of Africa. And we indeed encountered an eddy. And even though we did a most incredible first draft, well, first full resolution map of Africana Seamount, we were unable to deploy the ROV to get any visuals. So that just simply makes it a desirable for next time, and something we are hoping to achieve into the future. And then one of the real joys, and it was the first time myself and my team, and possibly some of the OceanXplorer team too, we did a live stream event, which was while we were at Walters Shoal, while we had the ROV in the water, as well as the submersibles, we live streamed from the ship back to the SAEON offices here in Cape Town, where we had a team from 5 different high schools. We had their high school learners sitting here ready to engage with us and talk to us and see firsthand exactly what was happening out at sea. So we did this live streaming event, which was incredible. And the team on OceanX, Mario in particular, just took it in his stride and made this a huge success. We really enjoyed it. It was a team of us who took these learners on a virtual guided tour around this vessel while we were actually doing the sampling in situ. It was terribly exciting, and I'm hoping that we will get to do more of these such events because it really reached a wide audience. So then we arrived in Cape Town and continued with our outreach and the portside activities. We had a huge Blue School learners event where we brought high school learners from 3 inland provinces that traveled down to Cape Town, many of them seeing the ocean for the first time in their lives. They participated in training workshops and had a tour of the vessel. We also had the high school learners from those 5 Western Cape schools who were part of that live streaming event meet us here in Cape Town and get on board and have a tour of that same vessel that they saw out in the ocean. And then during our 3 days in Cape Town, I think we also reached about 160 students, partners, public, and 60 VIPs who participated in tours of the Ocean Explorers. And that was an intense 3 days, I think everyone agrees, but really spreading the word and reaching the people in South Africa. And then post-expedition, well, the cruise report was a combined effort, and that was, for me, a really excellent initiative. Rather than the leads having to write this cruise report and taking that on, it actually was distributed amongst the entire team, and everybody had to write little sections, which really made a sense of ownership around this cruise report. And I think it's a fantastic cruise report. All the data were handed over to the African team, and we started working up some of that data. Ongoing collaborations, strongly encouraged and are underway. Our geology team is starting out there, leading the pack, I think. They're making headway. The eDNA team, mostly led up by Jodie Oliver at SciAb in Makanda. She's working up some of that DNA extraction. A soft coral team, I know they've been making some good progress over the past couple of months. And then the infauna and sediment team, who were not actually with us on the expedition, Natasha, Kareni, and Agnes, are going to be taking the lead on some of that infauna and sediment. And I just wanted to, again, say a huge thank you to OceanQuest and to OceanX for making this possible for all of us. I think for all of the Africans on board, this was the first time we've ever experienced this, and your expertise, guidance, and just placing us on the same platform, so to speak, as you all, really helped us believe that we can do this too. So thank you very much for that. And I will stop at that.
Thank you, Lara, very much. Very exciting, and yeah, lots of information. For Q&A, I'm gonna go with number one first. First come, first served. So if you can briefly expand on the difficulties that were encountered or are usually encountered with such expeditions in terms of safety and adaptability for participants.
Well, I didn't feel one moment of being unsafe during the entire expedition. Maybe that was my naivety, but I don't think so. The vessel's incredibly safe. But yes, we did encounter some challenging weather conditions, as would be expected in the open ocean. Certainly coming around South Africa, there were some bumpy days, but nothing terrible. I think it's incredibly safe. I even went in the submersible, and that was an incredible opportunity and experience, and have never felt so safe and at peace in my life. So that is, yeah, I don't know whether there's anything more to elaborate on the safety around the expedition. It was not high risk. I do live in South Africa, but there was no risk involved for me.
Great. Yes, thanks again, Lara. I encourage you to go through the Q&A box. There's some requests for LinkedIn contacts and some more questions. If you can address these offline, that would be awesome. And for now, we're transition to the Northern Hemisphere. We'll switch to Yara Rodrigues. Yara is a PhD in molecular biosciences. She is a board member at the Cape Verdean Institute of the Sea IMar, where she leads research coordination, international partnerships, and project management. She's on the board of trustees for the Partnership for Observation of Global Ocean. She works to advance inclusive science-based strategies for ocean development with a focus on marine technology transfer and capacity building across island and developing states. Over the past decade, she's secured and managed numerous national and international projects on climate resilience and blue economy. Yara, all yours.
Well, hi everyone. Thank you very much for this huge effort that you guys put for all of us being together, sharing a bit of what we did on board of OceanXplorer in this magnificent project that was envisioned by OceanQuest and OceanX. So I just have 10 minutes, you know how tricky it is. But my colleagues, Mattie and Lara, did a great job. They have so high, the bar is so high that I'm going to make it steady for an instant, okay? So In my 10 minutes, I'm going to give you a very slow briefing about, very short briefing about the research we did, the yield, and the high-level engagement. So I couldn't start this presentation by saying how honored I am personally and for my institution and for my country to being part of this amazing experience that is the Round Africa expedition that gave these opportunities to country like mine, underrepresented regarding to technologies in marine science, to do this. So Cabo Verde is now in the map, not just for the route of mission of Africa 2025, but also in the map of the world, because this was a very broadcast mission. We had a huge feedback on this, and as you're going to see at the end of the presentation, the feedback is so real that we're going to take it into action. So we brought together for this mission around 15 scientists from 6 countries. And together we did this partnership work. Okay, so again, I'm starting here by putting a lot of the partners that had this huge contribution for the success of the event. So I am part of IMar. I was leading the group here in Cabo Verde. And I thank to all of the partners that were with us in this process. I am so sorry if I miss any of those, but please take a look on this for 1 second. So the idea behind this is to explore the unknown. So that's the common root for all of us, which is the reminding question about what is the role of the seamounts. Since I have people here in this presentation that are new into this field, I brought this slide to talk a bit about what is the seamount and why we are asking question about it and why we wanted to do such an intense survey on it. So seamounts are underwater mountains of volcanic origin that rise from the seafloor. They are very important because they can work as a hotspot of biodiversity. They can create different type of ecosystems, and also they can give inputs for the vulnerable marine ecosystems that will be used for politics and management in the government, as is the case for Cabo Verde. So why they pick Cabo Verde? Someone from Benin asked that. So there's many reasons, and I'm pretty sure someone will answer these very correctly. But I could just pinpoint that the first thing is that my country, it's very beautiful, has different type of complexities, and has different backgrounds that makes it more and more complex. So this is the first argument. But the second one is that we are a big ocean state. We are also a marine hotspot for biodiversity. We have different levels of endemisms, and this also not in the island perspective, but also in the seamount perspective, as you're going to see in the next slide. There are also different geographical and physical and biochemical interactions that are very complex that happens in this region. So this little point here is Cabo Verde. For those that are not familiar, we are an archipelago with 10 terrestrial islands. And we are also part of the Madagascar region. So we share different features here. And one of the features that are interesting for this topic is that the islands and the seamounts, they enhance primary productivity and biodiversity through different type of points. And it's also here important to say that we undergo the influence of the Canary current that makes this area very prone for upwelling and other type of characteristics as the sour and dust inputs and the major water masses that we have in this area. So apart from that, it's interesting to bring up that we are in the 98th rank of the most vulnerable country in the world regarding to climate changes, but still we are we are 76 in the readiness of tackling this threat, and we are also working legal framework. So this project of the mission around Africa will definitely bring some components that will help us to increase in this rank. So the seamounts, specifically in Cabo Verde, we had a previous studies from 2010 and 2019, 2020 from our partners that did this previous mapping on the different composition and seamounts that we have here in Cabo Verde. There are around 10 seamounts, so maybe we should not say that we are 10 islands, because they are also supposedly called as islands, so maybe we are 10, but they are seamounts. They are also normally associated with fishing grounds, regions. They are very rich, biodiverse places, and they have different complex undergoing ecosystematic process. So previous expedition did the studies on this. They found different type of species, but it was in some sort of way superficial, and we were very interested in getting to know what is happening in some specific region. So coming back into the map, so this is the islands of Cabo Verde, the 10 islands, and we are here in Santo Antão. Just focusing in Santo Antão, we picked the Nola Seamount. So why we did that? Because the Nola has very interesting features. As you can see in the image, they have 2 peaks, and they also work as a fishing ground. They have geological features that are very complex. And also they have these differences in the depth and summits and shallow parts that make this region very interesting to analyze the ecological interaction. It's also important to say that not just the differences in the peak, that we will have the different complexities happening here. We have the combination of deep volcanic activities from young and old features and erosional features that make this area an ideal location for studying both recent and older volcanic process. And also this represents another level of the interaction with the ecological part. So the general objectives of this leg here in Cabo Verde was to survey. It was to know what was happening there, okay? Because we had some hints, but we didn't have a higher resolution. We didn't have much information in different levels, and that's what we did here. So we did a survey. We prompt ourselves to survey benthic habitats along depth transects and assess the ecological status. And all of these operations included high resolution multi-beam mapping, ROV and submersible dive, eDNA analysis, zooplankton sampling, water column profile, and measurement of the atmospheric aerosol with another partner from NASA and NOAA. So also it's important to say that all of these operations that we did, they were designed to address key data gaps to support the future monitoring and conservation efforts here in Cabo Verde, and also to potentialize the research collaboration. It's very important to say that OceanX and OceanQuest, they gather together and they allow a small country like mine with 500,000 of people to be here to bring all of these technologies that Mattie already showed from OceanXplorer, for us to tell them what is one interest that we have to solve and bring all of this here for us to do that. So this is something huge, and that became a milestone in our marine process studies. So here again is the full picture. You have the island, the Santo Antão, then you have the Nola complex here with the 2 peaks. So we have the West Peak and the East Peak. Those are the 2 places that we did all the transects with all the support, technological support that we had to go over. But we also, as you can see here, we did in this region because we did the scientific studies, but also we had a high-level visit that we thought it would be better to do in this region, as you're going to see in the other slides. So in general, we went through biodiversity and benthic habitat assessments. We use all the technologies regarding to operated and non-operated vehicles, or ROV and submersible. We went from 150 meters to 1,000 meters and try to document every type of habitats and faunal assemblage that we would find. and try to standardize also the visual census protocols, the specimens collections for the taxonomic, genetic, and ecological analysis, and also for eDNA and bongo toes. So before moving forward, it's also very important to say this collaboration, it's from years ago, that it came as a result from long-term collaboration that we have with Germany, from where our CEO, Martin, that already gave us very inspirational words at the beginning of the presentation said, and came out with this momentum that we had at the cruise, that we had OceanXplorer and Meteor all together doing different type of activities for the campaign. So it's important to say that for this cruise, the Meteor gave us a contribution by doing some CTD casts, also taking some current measurements and tow camera observation. It's very necessary also to say that this collaboration on data collection and that data sharing is going to increase our panel of information regarding to the biodiversity in the range that we analyze. I also thought that it was very interesting to put here that at the same moment that we had OceanXplorer and Meteor at Saint-Ouen doing the survey, we had during the past years different type of cruises, including in the same period, that is in Cabo Verde, to try to bring us all of these opportunities and technologies to answer our questions, but none of them has this one that the mission around Africa gave to us. So as Lara was saying, we started by mapping. So we did use the echo sounders, we did acoustic work, and we did all the seafloor mapping and high resolution bathymetric mapping of the sub-bottom profiling. So for that, we did around 2,391 kilometers surveyed. We improved the bathymetry and the volcanic features documented, not just for the summits, but also for the flanks. So by using Chimera, which is the ROV, we also were able to capture different type of seafloor imagery and collected samples. And also we were able to collect some water, and we did analysis of CTD. We record data that are being processed and analyzed. As you can imagine, that's a lot of data, and it takes a lot of people to do that, and the team is not so big, so we are trying to expand this side of the collaboration. It was always an exciting moment whenever the ROV would go down, and all of us, we would sit and be there for all the steps to organize the ideas on what are our priorities. So as soon as we saw something that would be interesting, we would say, please take this one, as is happening with this hard coral. So for the submersible, it was also used as a supplement for the visual census analysis. We did data collection. It was two submersible, which is very interesting because I don't think you can have such innovation and technology being used like this in any place. As Mattie was saying regarding to innovation, this is really the best, because we have at some point the two submersibles and the ROV are in the same point doing the transect. So it was very interesting indeed. So here is just an image to see whenever we were down there. So let me say also, it was my first time. I'm not, as Roger was, Wojciech was reading my bio, you did realize that I'm not an expert in marine biology. I'm an expert now. I'm becoming one in bringing people together and in organizing, making easy events like this one. So I had the opportunity to go to 500 meters, and it was absolutely epic, mesmerizing, and I couldn't have enough word to describe how amazing it was. So here is a representation of how it was one of these moments there, absolutely peace, as Lara was saying, but also very focused on the science that we could bring. And here, as you can see, there's a field of corals, but I'm going to show a better image soon. And it's very interesting also because we had the support for the image with all the technology from the sub, and we could collect different type of organisms that we were interested, as you can see here in the left. We did the biodiversity assessment for in this cruise, and also we did the analysis of eDNA. So it's performing with all the data that we got, not just from the water, but also from the sponge. As Lara was saying, the sponges are very interesting for eDNA because they can get a lot of they can filter a lot of water during a day, so they can be very interesting for studies like that. So we combined the biodiversity assessment and then the prospection of studies as the eDNA. So we did found different and amazing and complex type of organisms. Some of them we did not even classify. We don't have yet also the total inventory of all the species that we managed to find. That's why I did not bring the numbers as Lara did previously, but soon we can share this information with Whole. But I can show beautiful images of different microfauna that we were able to find, like crabs, lobster, reef fish, endemic lobsters for our case, and also very interesting individuals as this jellyfish that you can find in the right. So here is a general view of the type of background and biodiversity that we could find in the two peaks west and east of Nola. For example, if we go here in the west part, you can see that we have a steep basalt bedwork. We had bamboo, corals, hills at 1,000, and then at 500,000 we had a sponge ground with glass sponges, soft coral, endemic lobsters. 350 meters, we have more sandy seabed with gravel patches, green eye fish, spider crabs. And in 150, we had also sand bottom, but with volcanic rock outcrops, which is also very interesting to establish because they were different from one side to the other, as you could see. There are some points that are integrated, but some of them not. I hope I'm still in the time. And here, this is just an example of these grounds that you can find and the type of organisms also that we were able to collect as sponges and coral. We found very curious also symbiosis, as is the case for this sponge. We think it could be something interesting. We are still analyzing with taxonomies, but also with the eDNA analysis. We are also trying to do this studying way of organizing them by not just by the strategies that we use, but for the background that we also found. It's very important to say here that we observed that we have, this is the case of saying that we have the VMA's observation for the vulnerable marine areas, because we had different type of sponge grounds, including glass and soft corals, and coral gardens also. They work as very nice habitats. And also on steep slopes, we have dense black corals coverage even at 150 meters. And this is going to be very important data to use as data for conservation, sustainable fisheries, and marine spatial planning in the region. We also collected plankton. We did the bongo net analysis, so it was towed obliquely in 5 meters above the seafloor, different stations. We did not find ichthyoplankton, curiously, but we are still analyzing. There are other analyses that we can do. I don't have them yet, but as soon as we have, also we can share. Another part of this cruise was the megafauna. So we used this amazing helicopter from the program to do survey along different structures and in collaboration with different institutions. And we found different type of organisms as orcs, dolphins, sea turtles, and rays, which was unexpected for the region, all of this diversity of orcs, for example. So for geology, we did the sampling to characterize the seamount morphology. We also found different type of interesting features as the spillow of basalts, coated rocks, carbonates, that also can integrate in the ecological framework. Apart from the research, we had this high-level moment visits. We had the Minister of the Sea in the expedition. We did a visit to him, but we also had the President of Cabo Verde that not just received a scientific briefing, but also he completed a submersible dive at 150 meters. This is also a milestone moment for the region and for the ocean engagement. I'm very pleased to be able to try to translate what he said during our presentation and during all the moment that he was with us. He said that today I discovered part of my country I had never seen before, and that this experience will deepen his commitment to everything that is going to do for the development of our country. So this is a lot, this is huge, and it's having some feedback now. So every time that he's going on the media to talk about marine studies and research, the necessity of collaboration and cooperation, he talks about the program and he talks about the experience that he had here. And this is important because if we want anything approved, we need the Minister of Sea and we need the President working along with us to approve all of the management process. So as Lara was saying, we also had in this survey a momentum for share and integrate young professionals in this campaign. So we have the ECOPs. It was done here at the OCM in IMar. It was very interesting to have all of these young minds here talking about solutions for different type of problems regarding to ocean governance and marine topics. We also have visits from different schools. I'm sorry for the picture. I thought I had a good one, but here is not showing so good. We have different schools, more than 100 students from 2 islands, from Saint Anton Island and here from São Vicente, which is also very interesting because we were in Saint Anton doing all of these studies, so we managed to bring them here to get to know a bit of what it was being performed. So we also had institutional visits because we had a lot of support of not just technical support, but also support in administrative issues, which is very important, and it goes in parallel with what we are doing. So we managed to bring them here to visit the vessel, and they were also very impressed and very happy with the opportunity. So to finish, I would like to thank everyone that participated in some sort of way in this campaign, from the technicians that were deeply involved in everything, from Martin and Jose for all of this networking, from Vincent to OceanX team, Mattie, amazing Mattie, and all the team, Nico, Angel. So thank you very much. And I hope we can work together very soon. And again, I'm going to put here the logos from the institutions for you to appreciate. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Yara. Thanks. Lots of information. We're running a little bit behind time, so I will switch all the questions to the after this webinar. And with this, let me thank you again, and let's proceed to geology and mapping. Nico Augustin, my OceanQuest office roommate, he's the Research Expeditions Director, and as a marine geologist with over 2 decades of international experience in deep sea research, he specializes in ocean rifting, seafloor volcanism, and hydrothermal systems. At OceanQuest Foundation in Saudi Arabia, he leads global exploration missions and scientific collaborations across the Red Sea, Indian Ocean, and the Atlantic. So, Nico, go ahead, and if I just may ask the next speakers, you included, to keep to 10 minutes so that we don't run too much over time. That would be great. Go ahead, Nico. Thank you.
Thank you, Wojciech. Okay, so I reset my timer here and do my very best. Thank you. So yeah, I will talk about what we saw in the. I need to close some windows here because they are all in my screen here. Sorry. So I will talk about the bathymetry mainly, and what we from the geology team can read out of this data. Luckily, I don't need to tell so much about the expedition itself because it was all presented already in the beginning. Just a brief reminder, we went around Africa. This is a map here, a globe shot. It's a rendering of the situation that we have today, or at least last month, with the plate configuration here, Africa, Madagascar, the islands around, and you see also the ocean floor. If we go a little bit back in time, so just let's say 80 million years, the situation was quite a bit different. We see some familiar forms here. There's the African continent. There's some land masses that belong to South America, but you see the Atlantic is not involved as much. Madagascar and India are very close together. India is far away from its position where it is now. Antarctica is almost where it belongs to in the modern times. But this picture reminds us, because we are looking at the Agulhas Plateau and the Madagascar Ridge mainly today in my presentation, and those things are where those marine shallow areas were located at a different tectonic setting back in time. So we are talking about the Cretaceous time. So we have here again the Earth about 80 million years ago. And at this time, there were dinosaurs walking on Madagascar, and there were mosasaurs hunting ammonites in the oceans. So we had a completely different ecosystem and also a completely different tectonic system. Just as a reminder that we can basically put in to a framework what we are looking at later in the bathymetry. So the Agulhas Plateau and the Madagascar Ridge are both large igneous provinces. We call it LIPs in geology. It's just a short abbreviation for that. It's basically lots of high volumes of lava, magma that erupted at the seafloor. And not only that, so large igneous provinces can also erupt on land, but it's a huge amount, thousands, millions of cubic kilometers of material that are ejected in a relatively short amount of time. Short amount of time means still millions of years, but in geological scales, it's relatively fast. So here we have the situation about 95 million years ago. Here, this bathymetric shallow area is a model. It's not the accurate representation of this. But in this area, the Agulhas Plateau was formed together with some other bits and pieces that are now not together anymore. You see here, south of the Madagascar Ridge, there's not a large shallow area yet, but if you go to about 75 million years in the models, then we see here a large shallow area south of Madagascar, the Madagascar Ridge. There's also indicated that we had some larger islands, some land, dry land, maybe possibly at this time. So just to go a bit further, whoops, sorry about that. I was actually meant to be here. So the Madagascar Ridge, the exact age is debated, but it seems to be younger than the Agulhas Plateau. Agulhas Plateau was formed between 140 to 95 million years ago. And it was this entire area here consisted of the so-called Northeast Georgia rise, which is now near the Falkland Islands, and also the so-called Maud rise, which is now close to Antarctica. That had to do with plate tectonics. The entire area broke apart with time when the Southwest Indian Ridge and the Atlantic Ridge took place here in this area. On the other side, we have the Madagascar Ridge, which is presumably a bit younger, not really known how old exactly, but it is laying on seafloor that is about 80 million years old. So that's maybe also indicated how old the Madagascar Ridge is. And it is separated from the so-called Decanio rise about 66 million years ago, when basically the dinosaurs died out, extinct. And the Decanio rise is now also closer to Antarctica and in the south of the Southwest Indian Ridge. Okay, so what do we look at now? Or basically, how do we look at the seafloor now? So I will not go too much into the details about how hydroacoustics work, but in principle, we use acoustic methods because light is not penetrating the ocean deep enough. There's nothing else. Radar is not working. It's reflected from the water surface. So basically, we always listen. And so we measure basically the depth for our bathymetric models. It's never a real bathymetric map. It's always a model generated out of the data that we have. We listen very careful to the how the sound is coming back, and then we can extract some seafloor properties like sediment thickness, sediment grain sizes, and so we can extract from this data. And if we use different frequencies and do very, very careful listening, so to say, with a lot of computer power, we can also look a little bit deeper under the sediments. It was mentioned already by Mattie that we can also have seafloor bottom penetrating sonars that shows us the finer sediment structures and the rocks beneath the seafloor. So how is it looking like when we get this data? It's basically here a bathymetric map is what most people use. We also look at the seafloor properties and backscatter image, and we can also here look at subbottom profiles. I will not show too much about this subbottom profiling, but the other two data I will show from our area. So some preliminary observations of the Around Africa expedition I will show now. We have here in the first leg the Walters Shoal area, the Madagascar Ridge Seamount. This is an unnamed seamount southwest of Walters Shoal here. And then we have the Africana Seamount. At Walters Shoal, as Lara already said, it's very, very shallow area. We could not map the inner part of this seamount. It's less than 10 meters or around 10 meters, 12 meters, something like that. No one really knows. But around this, you can see already lots of structures here. I'll show just a very superficial, very shallow interpretation. But what we see here is debris blocks and erosion channels from the island. The island is very, very old, or this seamount is very, very old. So it was eroding for over millions of years. Here's a large landslide. We see the escarpment here. Blocks and the main area or the main volume of the landslide is laying here in this area. We see some terrace structures here. We see the shallow reef structures here. There's a big detached block that slid down from the main structure. We have some larger debris blocks here, sand furrows that show some erosion structures. We also see blocks and boulders with surrounding scours here. That also indicates the current regime. A detail what I would like to show here from this area is the northern part is the blocks and boulders with the furrows here. And if you look into the backscatter image, which shows us, in this case, most likely some grain size distribution, we see, I hope you can see that this darker shadows here, which indicates some finer material laying in the so-called in the shadow of the currents here. Behind the big blocks. And if you see, look a bit more careful, then you see that the shadows are surrounding the seamount, parallel to the seamount flanks. And what we see here is maybe the indication of sediment transport by so-called recirculating flows around the seamount, which is shown also in physical oceanographical mapping or modeling that these currents are existing, and that's quite nice that we can see in hydroacoustic data these currents. This is an image from the large seamount southwest of Walters Shoal. It's a very big seamount, a flat one. It's a submarine goyot. Also here, lots of structures around. This is here the unmapped seamount flank, just for comparison. We see lots of erosion channels. We see small volcanic cones and around the main seamount structure. This one was also most likely at the sea surface, or maybe even built some islands at some point in the time. We also see some sediment rafts here and there in this outer parts of the map, which also indicate high current regimes at the seafloor. And then we come to Africana Seamount. I see that my time is running away. Just give me 1 minute more. Africana Seamount turned out to be very complex. It was more complex that I was thinking of. So we see here an elongated feature, basically. We have the main seamount structure, which is the Africana Seamount, but we also have many other volcanic structures here. We have the volcanic ridge here on the eastern side. We have lots of volcanic cones in a ridge on the western side. We have also this very interesting fault structures here in the north, and most likely also in the south. The data is not so good here in the south. It's satellite derived and some from the JEPCO data map, from JEPCO map. So, but it looks, when we do some profiles, that there is something that looks like an extensional area here. And if you look at the bigger picture of the Agulhas Plateau, we see some structures here that are crossing the northern part of the Agulhas Plateau. If you look at the small map down here, we see the plate boundaries about 95 million years ago, and we are off this plate boundary. So maybe it has something to do with this indicated transform fault here, or this is something new. We call it a neotectonic, which started to build up after the main emplacement of the Agulhas Plateau. Maybe it's some rifting related old structures, maybe it's something younger. We don't know yet. We have no samples. But I found one paper in the literature from 95 that already indicated that there might be some newer tectonic movements going on. That is something what I would be very keen to check out in the future. We see that also here in the gravity image, that there is something going on very regional in the northern Agulhas Plateau. Last but not least, there was, of course, the Nola Seamount. We mapped the seamounts, the Charles Darwin vent field, and also this huge landslide that came off the island here. I did not have the time yet to look much in this maps, but just geologically speaking, most of the structures that we are seeing here is all young volcanoes, because the Cabo Verde Islands are, of course, on a hotspot. And the Charles Darwin field is one of the most active areas in this, on top of this hotspot as well. And I'm a little bit over time. I'm sorry about that, but yeah, thanks for joining.
Nico, fascinating geo-optics. Thanks for sharing. And now we're switching to Science Program Associate at OceanX, Kailani Acosta. Kailani's focuses on science education, capacity building, expedition planning, and ocean biogeochemistry. She received her PhD from Columbia University when she conducted her research in biological oceanography, specifically nutrients and phytoplankton changes. So Kailani, if you're ready, I invite you to share your best practices in the ECOP training and capacity sharing.
Great. Thank you so much, Wojciech. So hi, everyone. I'm Kailani Acosta. I work on both the science and education teams, and I will be talking about the incredible contributions that the early career and young scientists added to our journey. So this is the same map that Mattie showed before, just showing it again to show the real breadth of this journey. We covered so much of the Atlantic and Indian Ocean, which is just an incredible thing as an oceanographer, but also thinking about capacity building, all of the people that we were able to impact, all of the people that were a part of this mission and able to use the data are really benefiting from all of the work that we did together. And the impact of this mission will be really long lasting, much more than the 4 months of the mission itself. And none of this could have been done without incredible partners, as everyone has mentioned thus far. But on the education side, especially POGO, so we worked really closely, OceanX, OceanQuest, and POGO, to select candidates, to find trainers to train the students and the early career researchers. We were so thankful for all of their help with all of the many logistical things that it takes to get, you know, students and educators and early career scientists from 33 different countries all into one place when there are many logistical challenges in the way. It worked, and it was really amazing to see it all come to fruition. So we did a lot of really amazing work throughout our journey, but one of the best things for the ECOPs was being able to really dive into doing real science. So a lot of the ECOPs that we had on board had never been on a research vessel before. They had never conducted science at sea, although some of them were oceanographers. And even if they had, it had been really close to shore. So going out to sea for this amount of time, especially for the long leg, which was 21 days, was a real deep experience that not a lot of people get to ever see or get to ever experience. And within that, we got to sample and experience some environments that oceanographers only hear about in textbooks. So through our journey from Walvis Bay, Namibia to Mindelo, Cabo Verde, we went through 2 oxygen minimum zones, which are really incredible areas that have oxygen in the surface ocean, no oxygen in the middle, and then oxygen again at the bottom of the ocean. And these midwater, no oxygen zones just allow for lots of incredible extreme life to live. And it was a really amazing experience for the early career scientists to get to design an experiment on the fly in real time, seeing the numbers come in and being able to say, this is where we want to sample, this is what we should sample, and this is how we should start forming our scientific questions. And there's really no better way to learn than being thrown into it. We also collected sargassum samples, which are floating seaweed that form huge patches. Right now, we are in the largest year of sargassum ever. So we see sargassum patches that go across the entirety of the Atlantic. So looking at those samples, looking at the communities within sargassum has really allowed both the trainers to design programs around the things that we're finding in real time, as well as helping the ECOPs to really figure out what it means to be a scientist at sea and get that experience that you really can't get otherwise. So throughout this expedition, we had 4 transit legs that were focused on education. We had incredible guest faculty that were able to help us really dig in on some focused seminars and workshops. We had 17 guest faculty, which was really an amazing help to us, as well as the OceanQuest and OceanX science faculty. We had 56 young explorers and early career explorers. 34 of them were early career. And we were really able to help with capacity building on the African continent as a whole, as all of these participants were from many different African countries. So we're super thankful to POGO again for all of the help in selecting all of these amazing candidates. We learned so much from them as well. I'm sure they learned a lot, but just being surrounded by so many incredible, excited young people was a really amazing thing, just to see for that much time too. It's hard to be at sea for a really long time and be excited about it for, you know, almost a month straight, but they did it, and they did an incredible job of being, you know, willing to take in information and conduct science at the same time, which is also hard to do. So we focused in on hands-on learning, developing skills in science communication and media, extended reality and augmented reality, as well as acoustic mapping, eDNA analysis, carbon system understanding, marine geology, and bioinformatics. So we did everything from learning how to pipette to running full eDNA libraries of organisms that we found through the water column. We looked at sediment cores. We looked at, we were able to process the amount of carbon through the water column and code everything in R. So it was a really incredible experience that could not have been done without all of the amazing trainers that we had on board that were able to give hands-on expertise as well as mentorship and capacity building in really specific areas, which was really impactful for both the growth of our ECOPs as well as our growth as a scientific community. There are so many things that we have to learn still, especially around Africa. So just being able to create so much momentum around this region was really powerful. So here were our early career explorers for our 2 early career explorer legs. We also had a few early career explorers that were embedded into the science legs, which is also really amazing and super impactful for their own development as scientists. But these education specific legs were focused on the development of these 34 amazing young scientists to help them develop the skills that they wanted for themselves. Maybe they didn't get them throughout their PhD, or maybe they wanted to focus in on something else. So we were able to help these scientists become better scientists and make the world a better place, you know, one step at a time. So we were really focused on building through hands-on training, and for scientists as well, it's really hard to think about media and science communication in the same way as you do science. So integrating how we talk about and how we learn about science communication has been really powerful to become better scientists as a whole. And our expert media team were really, really fundamental to that. So all of these pieces together, the scientific skills, the science communication, and the mentorship and cohort building really built an incredible community that will last a really long time. So that's all I have on the ECOPs. And thanks everyone for being here. And thanks for lots of these ECOPs. I see you in the comments, and we have to connect again soon.
Yeah, thank you, Kailani. We will continue in the ECOP dimension. Next will be Sinotado Shibe. She's a marine biologist at the South African National Parks, an organization responsible for managing South Africa's territorial national parks, as well as 10 of the country's 42 MPAs, marine protected areas. She holds a master's degree in marine biology and has a strong background in benthic ecology. Her early career included work on interpretation of visual data with the South African National Biodiversity Institute, and I believe that's one of the focuses of your presentation, Sino. So take it away, please.
Hi everyone, I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay. I hope you can see my screen in presentation mode.
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay, great. So hi, everyone. I'll keep my camera off for my bandwidth, but my name is Sinotando Shibe. And as mentioned, I'm a young marine biologist working at the South African National Parks. I'm super excited to be here today sharing our experience with you. And I know earlier Roger spoke about the unknowns, such as lost bags. And I know this firsthand because my luggage actually stayed in Tanzania while we flew to Comoros. So I had to spend the entire expedition without my bags, which was very exciting. So as you already know, earlier this year, I had the incredible opportunity to join the science leg of the expedition. My participation was funded by POGO, which plays, I think, a very big role in building a global ocean observing system and empowering early career professionals like myself, as Mattie and the others have mentioned. So there were 13 of us early career professionals from 7 countries on the first science leg, each coming from different scientific and research backgrounds and with different interests. And I have to tell you that it didn't take a very long time before each of us found our own space and where we wanted to spend most of our time during the expedition. And the range of research that each of these beautiful people that you see on the screen did was very different and interesting. And these went from basic building blocks of life and food webs and environmental factors. And I will give you a brief overview of what each and every person on the screen did while we were on board the OceanX. So first we have Jody Oliver from the South African Institute for Aquatic Biodiversity, who worked on environmental DNA. And environmental DNA has been mentioned a lot before now. If you don't know what these are just traces of DNA left behind by organisms in the water, or in this case, sponges as well. And it's a very non-invasive, accurate, and cost-effective way of monitoring biodiversity. So here is just a glimpse of the sample collection, the number of biological samples that were collected during our expedition, and just the next steps that are now being done at SAEON here in South Africa. Next, we had Brishan, who is from the South African Environmental Observation Network. And while aboard, Brishan explored nutrient dynamics and primary producers at different ocean depths. We had Catherine, who's also from SAEON, but although wasn't part of the expedition, Jordan and Cabo here collected water samples for her, and she was going to focus on the relationships between zooplankton and bacteria and how these may be affected by global change. We had Yamin from the University of Cape Town here in South Africa, who did microbial taxonomy and how microbes are distributed in response to their environment. We also had Jordan, who is from the South African Polar Research Infrastructure, who looked at how environmental factors such as temperature, depth, and salinity affect biodiversity. So because the data that was collected throughout the expedition was immediately available to us, by the end of the expedition, the team already had preliminary results. So here you will see just some of the results that Brishan, Jordan, and Yamin had processed while we were still on board. And just to say that, can you actually believe that all of this work, all that I've mentioned now, is just from a few bottles of seawater using our incredible CTD, which I think is honestly just mind-blowing. So we didn't stop there. We also had Bibiana, who's from Lurio University, and she collected soft corals for taxonomy and DNA barcoding. And on the geology side, we had Mutada from King Abdullah University of Science and Technology, who gathered volcanic rocks from the seafloor. I know for other people, it might sound a little less exciting at first, but these rocks actually help us in understanding the chemical makeup of our seamounts. And plus, these little rocks often came up with surprises and deep sea creatures who were catching a ride on them. And as you can see from this picture, we have this beautiful rock that has lovely little corals, and we found spot lobsters, small little brill stars. It was just a whole habitat on its own. So I have to say that none of this would have been possible without the support of our incredible ROV and sub teams and the amazing, amazing equipment that everybody who's presented now has shown you. So as you know, that ROVs and submersible collect hours of video footage. During this expedition, we had George from the Wildlife Conservation Society and Jovial from University of Tularia, and who are champions on identifying fish species for us using the ROV and sub footage. And another part of the mission, another very integral part of it, as you've heard now, was the seabed mining. And as part of the ECOPs, we had Amina, which I think Mattie had mentioned before, from Kenya Marine Fisheries Institute. And we also had Doreen from the University of Dar es Salaam, who really gained hands-on experience in mapping, using mapping instruments, with data acquisition, and with processing as well. We also had Sole from Moheli National Park, who was very eager about replicating eDNA research in Comoros. So really, everyone contributed something very unique. And together, I really think we brought in a rich mix of knowledge that really gives us a holistic view of the ocean. And this is just a picture of everybody in the lab. And to tell a little fun fact is that one of the days we stayed in the lab until 12 midnight. And that's how dedicated this team was. So honestly, this experience wouldn't have come together without people such as Lara and Nico and Anna, who I'm sure is on this call, and the entire crew of the OceanXplorer, especially you, Mattie, if you're still on the call, and the funders OceanQuest, who believe in the importance of actually giving young people opportunities to learn and grow. So for that, we thank you very, very much. And I really think investing in young professionals is, it's about more than skills, right? It's about building the next generation of leaders who will work on topics such as climate change, biodiversity loss, and sustainability challenges. So it's not just scientists who are part of this expedition and part of the ECOPs. We had people like Cabo, who's our marine technician here in South Africa at SAEB. And he plays a massive role in keeping everything running and in supporting the research that we do, as you would see with the technical staff on board the OceanX as well. So I know Lara has mentioned this, but while we were aboard, we hosted a ship-to-shore live streaming outreach with a group of Cape Town high school learners. And this was organized by Thomas and Tonti from SAEON. And this was honestly an incredible opportunity to give learners a virtual tour of the vessel, which Cabo and I did both in English and isiZulu, which is a South African language. And for them just to see the mapping and the ROV dive in real time. So now on a more personal level, this expedition was an unforgettable adventure. I descended to 500 meters in a submersible along a seamount, and it was something I never imagined I'd get to do. So just to quote myself, and this is something that I said immediately after my dive, I said it was fantastic. And I'm quoting myself because when I said this, I had the very fresh feeling of having been in the deep sea. And I said it was fantastic. It was all kinds of amazing. I'm still trying to find the words to articulate this. And even today, I still am. And being in a sub has always been like one of those, I wish I could read minds kind of dreams, you know? Things that you know would actually never happen. But here we are. I've been in a sub. I'm still alive. It was so calm. It was so tranquil. And like Lara had said before, we really could have stayed in there way longer than we were. And just to answer a few questions that you might have, let me just mute this. But if you were thinking if we were terrified, yes, we were absolutely terrified. Was it cramped? Yes. Did we need the loo? Again, yes, but we coped. Did we need snacks? The OceanX team had that covered, as you see in one of the pictures here on the slide. And would I do it again? And to that, I would say 1,000 times yes, and yes, and yes. And now just to share 6 things that I learned from this experience. I learned that small but consistent actions actually make a very big difference. I also learned that you cannot chase a wave, you just have to be ready for it. And this comes from the adaptability that we had to have while we were on the expedition. Another one is that everything moves, shifts, and evolves. And again, adaptability. Fourth one, embrace change. Maybe I'm saying the same thing over and over again, just using different words, but it's just to show that being in such spaces, you have to be open to change. You have to be open to things not working the way you're expecting them to, but you just have to embrace the moments all the time. And the fifth thing is that I learned to respect the interconnectedness of everything. And the last is after 3 weeks at sea, even the nicest people actually need a little bit of space. So in closing, this expedition really showed the true power of collaboration, curiosity, and really the shared love for the ocean, because everybody on board was honestly very passionate about what they were doing. So I think the research that we have done, the relationships that we've built, and the lessons that we've learned, I think will really keep shaping our path forward in marine sciences and marine exploration. So as young professionals, we really honestly do walk in the footsteps of those who have come before us and the mentors that we had on this expedition as ECOPs. And I think going forward, it is our job to then do the same for the ones that will follow and use the knowledge that we've gained for those who come before us and those who want to continue in this path of marine science. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you to the mentors, to the funders, to the crew, and everyone who made this experience possible. I would just like to say, let's keep learning, let's keep innovating and working together to really make sure that our oceans remain a source of life, of wonder, of hope for generations to come. Thank you very much.
Tando, thank you. Yeah, awesome presentation. Thank you for sharing, for the personal touch and for the emotions. And now the time for a demand that needs no introduction, but the protocol demands. So there it is. Let me present to you my other OceanQuest office roommate, José Moutinho. José is the nation's enablement director, and he, in his work, supports countries in unlocking their capacity to explore, understand, and protect the ocean, especially in its most remote and least known regions. And so José's role is all about building bridges between government, scientists, between technology and tradition, and between the surface and the deep. José.
Oh, thank you so much, Wojciech. Not much to say after this wonderful presentation. So I changed my presentation while I was watching the other presentation. So like a cross-section concentrating something about engagement. And what I'd like to say is that engagement at this level of around Africa expedition was not only in terms of stopping on the ports and having VIP visits or students visits, it was basically we are engaging with people every time, everywhere. I love this picture here because it was the first, let's say the first phase of our engagement. We were in Comoros. Can you imagine? We were supposed to start either in Mayotte or in Mozambique, or maybe Mauritius. But actually, we had a civil unrest in Mozambique, so we moved to Mayotte. And then in Mayotte, it was unfortunately devastated by a hurricane, so we have to improvise. So fortunately, we had the opportunity to engage with people from UCN Comoros, Said, Lubna, and Barca, and she helped us out very quickly, as Roger said in the first presentation, to reorganize, to shuffle all the pieces, and then we were there on time, and it was very nice because that was the start. Nico was there representing OceanQuest, and we started with a very nice workshop in the university in Moroni. That was our first engagement in this sport. So, but even more interesting is the need for this engagement is the only reason we got the consumables on time. Actually not on time, a few hours later. So engaging the port agencies, shipping companies, the scientists in South Africa, namely Lara and Juliet, allowed us to really to put everything on board of the vessel. To start with this first science leg, we've seen this photograph more than once, but again, engagement between the scientists around the Western the Western India Ocean, and also a lot of local agents and people. During this, people said already twice, we had this wonderful live stream. I really loved the presentation of Snow talking in Suzulu. It was wonderful. So very nice. A lot of kids interested in what is going on, and then the opportunity for them to come on board to see with their own eyes what they have seen before in this online meeting was fantastic. So continuing, we engage a lot of local scientists and the science community. This was our first big workshop. It was very nice. We had Bibiana down there on the bottom left side from Mozambique, Sully from Comoros. We had Jovial, it was mentioned before. So this was a wonderful meeting where for the first time, all these ECOPs and all the scientists could present their work for a larger audience. This is the full group after the group photo, after the workshop. And then we had another level of engagement as well. This was engagement at the highest level. This was a meeting we had with government officials and scientists from South Africa to try to come up with plans for the next steps in terms of what we'll do in the next years in this region. So we had George Siko, we had Imran Patel, both from DSI, Ashley Johnson, Lara, Martin, and Mattie discussing. And after that, we went to visit with other, government officials to visit the vessel. But we also visit other vessels. This was a very interesting part of this engagement. We had the opportunity to put together a lot of people, including some from South Africa that never been to the vessel in their lives, and they were living and working very closely with people from the Agulhas too. So it was a fantastic visit. So we could try to discuss how can we work together in the two-ship operation next year. And also, of course, we have very high-level visits to the vessel. This one is on the left is Minister Dion George, is the Minister of Environment, Forest and Fisheries. And also in the top right corner is Minister from Tourism from South Africa, Patricia de Lille. And also together, OceanX, together with the Embassy of France in South Africa, organized a Blue Talk. To advertise the UN Ocean Conference, but most importantly, to bring on board, dozens and dozens of high-level government officials, ambassadors, and a lot of people that are really interested in understand a little bit more what we are doing to help them to make informed decisions. And again, we were flooded by students and VIPs. It was unbelievable. We had about 160. Lara already said some words. I love this kind of photographs. They've been planning this for months. The kids, some of these kids came from England. Some of these kids came to see the sea for the first time in their lives. They are followed up by the crew of OceanX Media, and they were completely amazed. We really think we really touched their hearts, and they really, some of them will become, ocean professionals in the future. This is the kind, we had groups from 15 to 17 and 18 plus. It's important to say that, OceanX, especially Martha, Anne-Marie, and Frances Locke, they were the really drivers of all these visits. I'm just reporting what the work they have done. This is so nice to do that because it's such a huge, hard work. They worked for this for months, organizing all these 90-minute visits, scheduling everything that they needed. All the necessary authorization, transportation, and all that. It was unbelievable. Their work is fantastic. I also have to say that regarding the visits from the ministers and then other high-level government officials in the future, we wouldn't be able to do that without DJ Burgo. He's the chief of staff of OceanX, and he is the real driver on all these VIP visits to the vessel. Thank you so much, DJ. I hope you're there. And so then we left and we went to Walvis Bay. I love this photograph on top of the ocean, on top of the plane. You can see the desert, and you can see this connection between the cold sea of the Agulhas currents with this fog that covers part of the desert and is the basis of life in this area. And then we had again lots of VIPs visiting us, friends. We had people from the University of Namibia, but also we had the executive director, Maria Sardinha, from the Benguela Current Commission. And without this contacts, we'd never be able, we won't have to time this story, but it was fantastic. We'd never be able to find a flask 150 kilometers north from Walvis Bay that we needed for some analysis in the vessel. It moved around for three taxi drivers, four different kinds of transportation, and finally arrive on time with the flexibility of the captain that told the pilot, the port, to wait for 10-15 minutes while we were running through the port with this flask on our hands. So this commitment, this interest on make things happen and be on the ground is very important. And that's what we got from all these very nice people. And the person who found, this flask up north in Antis Bay is Johannes Itom. He's in the photograph. Thank you, Johannes. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to do some analysis in the vessel. So when we were in Walvis Bay, also, we had another workshop over there with the ECOPs. We had very nice individual presentations of each one of the work they did. But this is really summarize, the spirit of all this engagement with the ECOPs, with the people everywhere. And always Mattie always attract a huge crowd around her. And then we finally get to Cabo Verde. This is a beautiful photograph taken from the helicopter, OceanX helicopter, when we were coming back with the Minister of the Sea. And again, lots of people, only showing you photographs of people engaging at the local level with other scientists across countries, across continents. This is very important. And then we had the Minister of Sea visiting the vessel. Again, DJ, thank you so much for helping us to make it happen. We had also, Lara, omnipresent over there, explaining everything to everybody. And so then we have the most important visit was the visit of the president of Cabo Verde. He came with the helicopter and he stayed there for basically the full day. They visit the vessel, they talk with the scientists. He was very much interested, in a very good mood. And then he went down to the sub. It was something unique. And this is when he started to dive. And then this photo we have seen before. And then for the first time, he saw, the richness of their I mean, the underwater in Cabo Verde. When we came back, I mean, we sit down and he couldn't stop talking for half an hour because this was a life-changing experience for him. Fantastic. The president was really, really so happy to have this opportunity to know a little bit more about Cabo Verde. And then again in Cabo Verde, we had also more than 100 students on board, not only from the university, but also we brought students from the island of Santo Antão. They came with their packed lunch, they crossed with the ferry, they spent the whole day, and then they visit the vessel and then come back to their schools. It was a fantastic, I mean, 2 days of visits. There they are visiting the vessel. Again, in total, we had more than 300 students visiting the vessel, I mean, during the whole expedition. And again, more workshops. This one was to the workshops with the ECOPs that are participating in the transit between Mindelo and Las Palmas. And then we had also a very nice evening inviting people from the government of Cabo Verde and other VIPs to come on board. And Martin asked his friend Kira to sing for us. It was a beautiful night, very interesting. And then also, again, we had the opportunity to visit other vessels. I was fortunate enough to be invited by Captain Roger to visit Thalassa, and we met with the captain of Thalassa, spent a lot of time exchanging ideas on potential future collaborations. We had Meteor with us for a few days at the Nola Seamounts. And then we finally arrived in Las Palmas just for the few last engagements. We visit the the seaweed bank, where they had more than 800 different species and varieties of seaweed over there. And then, of course, finished. And this is just the numbers. You already listened to the numbers. I mean, hundreds of people, several hundreds of people engaged with us online, in person. It was absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much, OceanX, OceanX Education, IMar, SAEON, the University of Cape Town, Leila Neft, and also Kogi Govender and Thomas Montosi. They were unbelievable. And in South Africa, Juliet Hermes was behind all that for all these people, and I forgot somebody. Thank you so much.
Jose, what a story and awesome pictures. Yeah, for sure. We'll continue to the last but not least presentation, and that will be on pictures and imagery as well. Eben Hall is the executive producer of OceanX Media, where he leads the team that creates the world-class content that we enjoy. And from images to videos, from live stream to crafting cinematic stories in some of the planet's most remote locations, Eben blends editorial vision with a spirit of adventure. So it's a rare pleasure to host a filmmaker, a drone pilot, and a diver in one person. He thrives at the intersection of science, exploration, and storytelling, inspiring audiences to care about our blue planet. So Eben, it's your time to inspire us now. Over to you.
So much. I feel like Jose kind of wrapped this up in a nice way. So I literally had my red pen on my presentation to see how quickly I can do this. But anyway, I am Eben Hall, executive producer for OceanX Media. I think we still got just over 100 participants. So thank you for sticking around this long. So I'll quickly go through how we approached media on the expedition and our media capabilities in general. So why does media matter? Well, as you heard from Mattie and others, our mission at OceanX is to explore the ocean and bring it back to the world. And that second part, the bringing it back to the world part, is what we live and breathe on the media team every day. Inspiring someone, showing someone a beautiful deep sea reef or amazing shark or anything is really the first step in protecting it. You can't love or even be interested in something if you don't know it exists. And that's really especially relevant when we're talking about the ocean, right? Because so much of it is hidden beneath the waves. So hence why great pains was taken to make OceanXplorer a real media collecting powerhouse. So on board the ship, we do have a dedicated media lab. It is, if I do say so myself, really amazing and a joy to work out of. You can see one of our edit stations there on the top right. But it's not just the fact that we have a media lab. The entire ship was designed just to look great on camera. And in fact, all the customizable lighting, which is throughout the ship, and the overall visual design had some contributions from the legendary filmmaker James Cameron. So it's really a filmmaker's dream. I won't go too much into the gear that we have, but we do have a lot of it, as you can see on the right. Some of the specific models, if you're interested in that sort of thing, are listed on the slide. On our sub, we do have two Red Monstro 8K cameras that can go down to 1,000 meters. We also have drones and GoPros and 360 cameras and tripods and gimbals and live streaming equipment and anything else that you could possibly want or imagine to use to create media, because of course, when you're at sea, redundancy is critical. You can't just order a replacement part or place an order on Amazon or get something fixed. So that's why we have a lot of kit on board to capture these amazing images. A bit more about what it's like to film on the ship. Here's some behind the scenes images. There's me hanging out of the helicopter, our director of photography, Adam, and the sub on the lower right, an interview setup on the bottom left. You can see some of that amazing custom lighting. And every day is an adventure on the ship. It's probably the only place in the world where you can be in a helicopter in the morning, filming whales, and down in a submersible in the afternoon, shooting deep sea sharks. A few more images to give you an idea of what it's like to work and tell stories on the ship. On the top left, that's a waterproof probe lens that we're using in the wet lab to shoot coral. You can actually stick that front of that lens in the water. On the top right, that's me with our big old 600 millimeter lens shooting our helicopter. On the bottom left is another interview setup. Again, you can see that amazing lighting that is throughout the ship. And on the bottom right, you can get a little peek of me launching in Nadir, which is our media sub. And you can see on the front port quarter there, one of our red 8K cameras in its housing. This is a fun moment highlighting the pitfalls and the glories of filming with a drone on a moving vessel. It's a bit harrowing, but as you can see on the left, the footage that you end up with is totally worth it. So can he land the drone? I can't remember. Yes, he can. That's Mario, our MTO. This is how the media team roles were divided throughout the Around Africa expedition. So a director producer, DP, digital imaging technician who's handling all the media management and ingesting and backing up, super important role. We usually have a dedicated digital correspondent who's in charge of our daily social coverage that was pushing out constantly. And then our media technology officer, or MTO, who's a jack of all trades who we always have on board, but is primarily responsible for keeping our media servers and other technology healthy and happy. Again, you heard about the presidential visit in Cabo Verde. It was really amazing to host him and put him in a submersible. From the media side, we were all over this, and we had photos uploaded actually before he even left the vessel, I'm proud to say. And then by the next day, subsea footage that we captured was being broadcast all over national TV. And we sort of became local celebrities, the ship did. And it just speaks again to the power of images to inspire people. And what did it all add up to? Well, an ungodly amount of data, 44.9 terabytes of media, just media, was captured during the 70 odd days of the expedition. If you're curious, that is equivalent to 9,000 DVDs worth of data, or if you wanted to watch all of it, you would have to spend 40 hours a week doing so for 6 months. I wouldn't recommend it, although there are a lot of beautiful images, which I would love to show you now. So yeah, I'll leave you with this. This is a 3-minute visual recap of all the best moments from the expedition. And if you don't hear music, please say something, because there is supposed to be music. Thanks.
Stunning indeed. Wow, what a video. Excellent. Thank you, Evan and OceanX Media. What a legacy for the expedition. That was amazing. Yeah, so with this, let me thank everybody for being a part of today's session, for sharing your insights, your reflection, and perhaps most importantly, your curiosity. And this momentum will continue through next chapters with the Deep Dives online series. And we hope to that the global deep ocean exploration research community will be able to continue galvanize this kind of attention and resources and action and all that the deep and the demands and the deep that deserves. So many thanks again for everybody for this. Please subscribe to the Deep Dive series and the upcoming sessions, and follow us on the social media. The next second deep dive is scheduled for July 24th. It will be about the Red Sea Rift. And then we have others upcoming in production, Falcor 2 findings, Chilean waters, and BB&J, and all sorts of exciting stuff. coming up. So maybe even once a month. So Jose, all eyes on you in the coming months. And so thank you again for participation. Keep the connections going beyond this meeting, and we'll look forward to seeing you online next time. Unless anybody else has any closing remarks, we can close today. Thanks, everybody.
I have a closing remark. Thank you so much for a wonderful moderation. Thank you so much, Wojciech. Been wonderful moderator. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Ciao. Ciao, ciao. Bye. Thank you.
Bye, bye, bye.
Oh, okay.